Welcome to this explainer. Okay, so the 2026 World Cup has been an absolute emotional roller coaster, hasn't it? If you've been following along, you know it's not just about the actual 90 minutes on the pitch. It's about the feeling, the atmosphere. It's about the shared collective memory we're all building as the drama unfolds. And right now, that memory has a very specific, very 90s soundtrack. Today, we're going to look at how a decades-old Britpop track has just completely taken over this summer's football narrative.
Section 1. A new World Cup soundtrack. Right, let's jump straight into it. Picture the scene. Thomas Tuchel's England squad has just pulled off an epic last 16 win over the tournament co-host, Mexico. Thousands of miles from home, in the roaring, electric atmosphere of Mexico City, the players don't just, wave politely and head down the tunnel. Nope. Instead, they gather right in front of the traveling fans, the stadium DJ hits play, and something magical happens. A massive, totally nostalgic sing-along kicks off, setting this completely unexpected tone for their entire campaign.
And it wasn't just a fleeting thing. Speaking on the Lion's Den podcast, England captain Harry Kane actually reflected on these massive sing-alongs, which, by the way, originally started after their initial group stage win over Croatia. He said, and I quote, "That was one of my favorite ever moments in an England shirt. Just that emotional connection with the fans. We know how much it means to them. It wasn't planned at all, but man, it instantly became the beating heart of their tournament experience."
And you can literally map this musical trend perfectly onto England's 2026 path. The tradition started out in the group stage against Croatia. Then it gained massive momentum in that crucial last 16 clash against Mexico. By the time they beat DR Congo in Atlanta, it was an absolute phenomenon. Now fans are already prepping their vocal cords for the highly anticipated quarterfinal against Norway. The song is quite literally charting their progression through the knockout stages.
So the really crucial point here is the raw emotion this anthem brings out. Like I said, it's not just a polite clap at the full-time whistle. The reports coming out of the DR Congo match describe midfielder Jude Bellingham actively baying the crowd, telling them to crank up the noise, just completely losing himself in the music. And Harry Kane, England's rescuer on the pitch, bellowing a massive yee-yees at the close of the track. It's pure goosebumps. It's a song all about hopes and saviors, and the players are leaning into it just as hard as the fans in the stands.
Section 2. Goodbye to Sweet Carolina. Now, to really understand why this new anthem is making such huge cultural waves, we have to look back at what it actually replaced.
We're essentially looking at two very different eras in English football. On one side, you have Neil Diamond's Sweet Caroline. That was the undeniable, totally inescapable soundtrack of the previous Gareth Southgate era. On the other side, we have Oasis's Wonderwall, stepping up to define the new Thomas Tuchel era. It's a complete shift in vibe and energy. But why the change? Why did fans suddenly ditch a song that was so incredibly popular just a couple of years ago?
Well, Sweet Caroline basically suffered from overexposure. According to the coverage, it just became a worn-out, tired version of an accompaniment. It completely lost its emotional punch. And maybe most importantly, it was heavily, intrinsically tied to the past, specifically the Gareth Southgate era. When a team gets a new manager and a whole new identity, the fan base naturally looks for a fresh cultural touchstone. The old song just ran its course, leaving a giant void for a new organic anthem to swoop in.
Section 3. The engineered official anthem. Now here is where the story gets really fascinating, because Wonderwall was absolutely not the song the organizers had in mind for this summer's soundtrack. Not even close. In fact, there was this highly produced official anthem ready to go called Carry the Flame. And it was deliberately designed to hit every single patriotic football trope you can imagine. We're talking direct lyrical nods to the historic heroes of 1966, Sir Alf, Bobby Moore, Bobby Charlton. Then it seamlessly name-drops today's stars like Kane, Saka, Bellingham, Rice. Throw in mentions of St. George's Cross and the Three Lions, and honestly, you have a textbook, top-down attempt to manufacture a specific footballing spirit. The lyrics try so incredibly hard to strike a unifying, historical chord. The song goes, not for a crown, not for a name, for every child who learned the game. It's poetic, right? It's stirring. And it was explicitly designed by the organizers to be the song that bridged generations and rallied the entire nation. It was practically begging to be the official soundtrack.
Section 4. The organic Wonderwall phenomenon. But, as anyone who loves football culture knows perfectly well, you just cannot force an anthem. The fans in the stadiums are always going to make the final choice from the bottom up.
And the fans organically chose a 1995 Britpop classic. The reaction from the band themselves has honestly only validated and fueled the fire.
Liam Gallagher, who is never one to mince his words, chimed in with this brilliant bit of validation: keep the biblical vibrations going. When you have the original frontman giving his explicit blessing to the traveling fans, it totally cements the song's status as a genuine grassroots movement rather than just some corporate marketing push.
Noel Gallagher, the guy who actually wrote the track, took it even a step further. In a recent interview with The Sun, he essentially relinquished ownership of the song for the summer, saying, "Wonderwall belongs to the people, and it has become a magical moment between the fans and the players. He has officially handed over custody of the anthem to the England squad and the supporters. He recognizes what a powerful, unifying force it's really become." So, what makes this track work so well? Well, it brings an undeniable feeling of connection. As one reporter noted, it brings the sudden urge to just hug a mate or, honestly, a complete stranger. It's an incredibly powerful nostalgic anchor. Remember, this World Cup is happening thousands of miles away, often playing at totally inhospitable times for the fans watching back in the UK. This familiar 90s anthem effectively bridges that massive geographical gap. It gives everyone a shared emotional touchstone to latch onto.
Section 5. The Great Fan Divide. But hold on. Before we go declaring it a unanimous nationwide victory, we do have to look at the pushback. Because believe it or not everyone is thrilled about being forced to sing Oasis.
Online forums like Reddit have turned into an absolute battleground over this. The pro-Wonderwall camp argues it's one of the best songs the country has ever produced. They say it's a proper English song for supporting England, and frankly, that anything is better than Sweet Caroline. But the anti-side? Oh, they are not holding back. They're calling it a dirge with lyrics about nothing, an overplayed sing-along song, and labeling the whole thing pure cringe. It turns out, adopting a massively popular radio hit comes with some pretty heavy cultural baggage and fierce opinions.
And that cringe factor? It has actually reached the pitch. One very observant fan noticed the players themselves awkwardly struggling during the song's incredibly long musical outro. They specifically called out player Anthony Gordon. Seemingly not knowing what on earth to do with his arms while the guitars played out for 2 whole verses, he ended up doing this awkward Liam Gallagher impersonation with his hands locked behind his back. It's a hilarious observation, and it really shows that even the players are still trying to figure out how to physically navigate this brand new post-match tradition.
Because of this huge divide, fans are pitching their own alternative anthems online. Some suggested The Killer's Mr. Brightside, though one fan very wisely pointed out that would just lead to yellow cards everywhere once the shirts inevitably come off. Others suggested the absolute stadium classic Seven Nation Army. And one fan, clearly wanting to avoid modern pop entirely, sarcastically suggested the Sex Pistols version of God Save the Queen. It just goes to show how nearly impossible it is to design a true consensus for a fan base of millions.
Section 6. The lifespan of a football anthem. So, this brings us to a really fascinating point about how sporting culture and our collective memory are actually formed.
We started this explainer looking at how a totally organic moment can completely overtake a highly engineered one, and we end with this provocative thought. Will Wonderwall be the track that finally brings football home for England, or just another catchy cliché for the history books? Anthems burn bright, but as we saw with Sweet Caroline, they can fade pretty quickly into annoyance. Whether you love it or hate it, Oasis is the undisputed sound of this World Cup run right now. The only question left is whether they'll still be singing it at the very end of the tournament. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. It's been absolutely fantastic guiding you through this, and I highly encourage you to keep your ears open for what the fans choose next.